Eating for two. You've heard that phrase before for expecting moms. Does eating for three apply if you're expecting twins? I'm Lindsay Stenevec, registered dietitian specializing in family nutrition, and I'm here to talk about nutrition for twin pregnancies. This is Twin Talks, episode number 15.
The ultrasound shows your babies to be healthy.
What? Did you say babies? You're huge. Are you having twins?
Are they natural?
Which one do you like better?
Twins, huh? My neighbor's cousin's brother's uncle's a twin.
So can they read each other's minds?
How do you tell them apart? Twins? You got a 2-for-1.
Do twins run in your family?
Double trouble. You're not having any more, are you?
At least you're not Octomom.
If you're pregnant with twins or you're an experienced twin parent, odds are you've heard it all before. Now it's time to hear from the experts. This is Twin Talks, Parenting Times 2. Welcome to Twin Talks, broadcasting from the Birth Education Center of San Diego. Twin Talks is your weekly online, on-the-go support group for expecting and new parents of twins. And I'm your host, Christine Stewart Fitzgerald. Have you heard about the Twin Talks Club? Our members get bonus content after each new show, plus special giveaways and discounts. And subscribe to our monthly Twin Talks newsletter and learn about the latest episodes available. And then another way for you to stay connected is by downloading our free Twin Talks app. It's available in the Android and iTunes marketplace. So before we get started, we've got a full house here. We're going to start, let's see, with Michelle.
Hi, I'm Michelle Redden, and I'm 34 years old. I work part-time as a kindergarten teacher, and I'm also the mother of boy-girl twins Sunny and Matthew, who are 22 months old.
I'm Brenda Rule. I'm 49 years old. I work as a corporate accountant full-time, and I have 3 boys. My oldest, Benjamin, is 13, and my identical twins, Joshua and Jonathan, are 11.
And I'm going to turn this over to Shelley, our producer.
Hi, Shelley Steele. I'm 30. I'm a high school history teacher and also a mother to identical twin boys, Grayson and Sawyer, who are 19 months old. And I wanted to tell you a little bit about our virtual panelist program. So you can join in our conversation from home by logging into our Facebook page, Twin Talks, or following us on Twitter. You can use the hashtag TwinTalksVP to become part of the conversation live.
All right.
So before we start today's show, we're going to look at some multiples news that's been in headlines recently. You may have heard about the woman who found out at 42 years old that she was expecting triplets. The pregnancy was a complete surprise for her, but an even bigger surprise was when she went to deliver at 27 weeks, they found a 4th baby. So instead of the triplets she was sort of expecting, she ended up with quadruplets, and in a crazy turn of events, they are identical quadruplets. So
what are the chances of that?
They are actually, let me see if I can find that number again. The chances of spontaneous quadruplets in general are 1 in 729,000. And because hers are identical, they're even slimmer. So we're looking at like a 1 in a million chance this woman had. Can you even imagine?
Oh my gosh. And I have to kind of laugh too, because I think about with all this technology and, finding the babies, and she wasn't 27 weeks until they found the
delivery.
Oh, seriously, delivery. Yeah, delivery till they found the last baby. So you'd think that they would have seen something?
If they weren't looking for it, why?
Must have been hiding back there somewhere.
Well, with the Octomom, they were expecting 7, and she ended up with 8. And I think there's only so much ultrasound can do with that tiny space and all those fetuses in there.
Yeah, you'd think you'd be looking at one and think you're looking at the same one, but maybe they were looking at the 4th one. You'd think that might
her
be
doctor
a little
apparently
bit
is incredibly embarrassed. But identical quadruplets, can you with my identical boys, I had enough trouble when we brought them home. We left their hospital bracelets on, we painted their nails, and
oh, that's going to be a nightmare for them. It's, I think about like the family of the parents are going to have a hard enough time with, labeling them. And then you think about like the grandparents, and it's going to be for the rest of their lives. Who are you?
Be the best option.
Yeah. Today's topic is nutrition for twin pregnancies, and we're talking with Lindsay Stenevec, who's here to help us understand how to maximize our nutrition for a twin pregnancy. So, hey, thanks for joining us, Lindsay. Twin pregnancies are special and complicated, and, we're automatically put in the high-risk category. What are the main concerns for any pregnancy?
Sure. So the first thing I know that you mentioned with twin pregnancies that it can be more complicated and things like that. And I think when we become pregnant, we kind of think that there is something complicated about the nutritional aspect, and there are some things to pay more attention to, but it doesn't have to be complicated. Really taking a step back and thinking about, the variety of your intake, the balance in your intake, and really getting in touch with what your body needs and allowing it to give you, the accurate hunger and fullness cues that it can. But in terms of specific nutrients that I always, encourage women to focus on are things like folate, which most of us are very familiar with, iron, vitamin C, vitamin D, DHA, which is an omega-3, and also water. So those are some nutrients that we can talk about a little bit today to focus on. And then, of course, making sure that you're getting overall enough food throughout the pregnancy. And carbohydrate, protein, and fat all play very important roles in fetal development. And that's where we get our energy from. So making sure you're getting enough of all of those.
Does the balance change? I know we look at some of these, general recommendations from, let's say, the USDA. Does it change at all for pregnancy, for pregnant women, or does that composition relatively stay the same?
It does change. The composition is relatively the same, but of course, overall intake does need to increase for any pregnancy. Most women with singleton pregnancies are going to be consuming anywhere from 2,600 to 2,900 calories, and that's just a rough estimate throughout, the later stages of their pregnancy. And with twin pregnancies, that's going to increase. And we actually don't have as much research on that topic as, there probably should be. But, upwards of above 3,000 calories. And you can actually look at body weight throughout the pregnancy process and multiply that in kilograms by about 40 to 45 calories to give yourself just a ballpark. But again, sometimes we try to wrap up the nutrition and the calorie recommendations in this little box with a beautiful bow and say, this is how much you need at this stage, and then you need to add exactly this much at your second trimester and exactly this much at your third. But then, the reality hits with pregnancy. And so every day your appetite's going to be a little bit different. You're going to consume maybe more one day and less another day. And so being open to that with your body, and what really matters is overall how you're doing.
Definitely. I'm going to turn it to our panelists here. Did you get any sort of, general recommendations, when you went to see your doctor about, your diet and nutrition?
Yeah. Probably as many of us were, I was very, very sick in the first trimester and actually lost 10 pounds. So my doctor's main concern with me being a very small frame, I'm only 5'1", and losing the 10 pounds actually put me in the underweight category. So her main thing was just pack on the pounds. So as soon as I started feeling better, which fortunately I did at about the 14-week point, it was just a marathon of trying to get in as many good rich calories as possible.
I was diagnosed with gestational diabetes at 12 weeks. They test much earlier with a twin pregnancy because it manifests so much earlier, and I had it during my singleton pregnancy. So I was immediately put in touch with a nutritionist, which I met with for the time that I was still mobile. I went on bed rest a couple of weeks after that. But my nutritional needs ended up very, very different because of the carbohydrate restrictions. And I'm really interested, Lindsay, to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah, definitely. And then when we look at twin pregnancies, is there really any difference aside from caloric intake that we need to consider?
Absolutely. With twin pregnancy, the blood volume increase is greater. So with a singleton pregnancy, it's 40 to 50% blood volume increase. And for twins, it's 50 to 60%, which changes the actual composition or concentration of nutrients floating throughout your bloodstream. And that's how we get our nutrients, to our own bodies and then eventually into baby's body. So that just, that's going to add an extra challenge. Iron is one of those important nutrients that floats, throughout our blood to deliver to all of our, important tissues into the baby. And in twin pregnancies, we actually need about 1.8 times the amount of iron than for a singleton pregnancy. So in a singleton pregnancy, we're striving for about 27 to 30 micrograms per day. So with iron, that's one of the nutrients that's floating out throughout the bloodstream. And for twins, we need 1.8 times the amount of iron than in a singleton pregnancy. So it's different than, 27 to 30 milligrams per day. We actually need upwards of about 48 milligrams, which is actually, that's a lot of iron to try and get in. It's already hard enough in a singleton pregnancy to consume enough iron, which is why we take a prenatal vitamin that has iron in it, or we might even take that iron separately just to kind of give us that that added insurance. And so working with your doctor to make sure that if you need to take something extra that you are, and you're taking it in a way that's maybe not it can create those fun side effects like constipation. And so, taking it in a way that's not affecting you as much. And in addition, the higher pregnancy hormones, which changes the way we metabolize glucose, and the placenta placentas are heavier and age quicker. And so we need to think about that from a nutritional perspective.
Yeah, I remember having my pill finder. I had to buy one of those ones that you think are just for older people because I'm borderline anemic. I always have been. And so, twin pregnancy just kind of made that worse. And I'm sensitive to everything, medicine, vitamins. So I had to take the gummy vitamins because everything else came back up, but they don't have any iron in them. So then I had to take the separate iron. And then to combat the separate iron, I had to take the Colace. And then I ended up with reflux. So it was like the Prilosec. It was just like this whole, I know you think I'm going to get to eat whatever I want because I need to gain this weight. And instead I ate, I think, less during pregnancy than I ever have. So it was just a constant struggle. I didn't gain any weight till about 18 weeks. And then I was able to keep food down finally. So, but yeah, it's definitely unique. I mean, you think I'm good at eating. I'm Italian. I weigh plenty. This should be fine. But no, it was working with my doctor and looking at my blood work to find a good balance to make sure I was getting enough for the boys.
I felt like the second trimester was the eating zone. The first, you're so sick. And by the third, like you said, with the reflux, and you're just so full of two babies, it's hard to get anything in there. So the second trimester seemed like the best time to try and pack on those pounds.
And, as far as the weight gain, in any regular pregnancy, that's really the focus when they start really tracking, the weight gain. And I know that a lot of doctors, do tend to be, sometimes they kind of think they overly focus on it. But I think, Lindsay, you had mentioned earlier about, caloric intake. And, what are some general guidelines that twin, expecting moms should look at? And, Are there any sort of, road markers in terms of, what they should aim for?
In terms of weight gain?
In terms of weight gain, yes.
Sure. There's lots of different bodies of research in this area. And, sometimes we hear a lot about pre-pregnancy weight and how that may affect what your needs are, or weight progression throughout the pregnancy. But there's actually a lot of research that says we really are focusing on the progression of weight gain during pregnancy. It's maybe not, it depends, of course, but maybe not so much of where the woman's starting to a certain degree, but how it's progressing throughout the pregnancy. And especially with twins, the whole point of that monitoring is to make sure that it's reflecting appropriate growth for the fetus and appropriate accumulation of tissues to provide, everything that needs to be provided for the pregnancy for the woman. So for twins, and of course this is just a ballpark, recommendation, but a total weight gain for the entire pregnancy being around 40 to 45 pounds, something around there. Again, that's just a ballpark range, and every woman's going to be a little bit different. With twin pregnancies, we depending again on how the first trimester goes, but we tend to see weight gain really needing to start earlier than your typical pregnancy. So starting in that first trimester, which, as you're sharing, that it can be very difficult when you're having morning sickness and low appetite and things like that.
And, so do you have any recommendations in terms of, what are some good foods to kind of, get those extra calories in a good way?
Good question. So with the first trimester, and actually I'm not pregnant with twins, but I'm pregnant and I'm about 14 weeks, so I can actually relate on
congrats. Congratulations.
I can actually relate on a personal level of what that can really feel like. And I always have said, and now I can really attest to this, is something is always better than nothing. And so nutrition does matter, throughout the entire pregnancy, but making sure that you're eating consistently throughout the day, choosing foods that maybe are more bland or more sour or sweet, or, it kind of depends on what is working for you during that time, but really working to find the flavor profile that feels acceptable for you. And then I'll always say you can kind of step back and think about the foods that are acceptable and make a little list for yourself in each food group. So you think, okay, what fruits am I accepting right now? What vegetables am I accepting right now? What protein sources, and so on and so forth. And make sure that you have something in every group. And if you don't, that can be kind of your experiment section of, I'm really not craving protein rich foods right now? Are there any types of protein-rich foods that I could possibly fit in during this time?
And it sounds like then it changes. And I know personally for me, oh gosh, with my twin pregnancy, I didn't really have any set cravings or aversions. But I know with my singleton pregnancy, I went through a phase where I had aversions. And for example, I love, Indian food and curries and spices. And there was probably a good 6-week period where I just could not eat anything spicy. It was I couldn't eat beef or chicken, the really basic stuff. So it sounds like you're saying that you kind of just take a look at a period by period and say, oh, here, let's create our little list of things that we know are our go-to foods.
Right. And there are ways you can kind of sneak in the nutrients, again, that might be in a more acceptable way during that phase. I know that sometimes blending veggies into, a fruit smoothie or juicing, that kind of thing could be helpful if that's a flavor profile that is feeling comfortable, at that time, or protein shakes or things like that. Really, a lot of women tend to gravitate towards foods that are just really easy to digest, the melt in your mouth foods, which are going to be carbohydrate rich foods. And the baby really needs carbohydrate to thrive. So, that can be helpful for some people.
Now, how about here, Michelle, Brenda? What were some of your, go-to foods? What were your flavor profiles when you were pregnant?
Does top ramen count? 'Cause that's about all I ate the first trimester.
Well, I didn't have morning sickness, fortunately, but my experience was so different because I was on bed rest, so I was really at the mercy of my support people. And during the day, I made sure I had a mini pantry and a mini fridge set up in my bedroom because I could make it about 3 feet away, and that was it. And so I kept in there what I could. But again, with the gestational diabetes restrictions, there wasn't all that much I could have in there. I ate a lot of roasted chicken, as much protein as possible, a lot of peanut butter, ham, but not too much salt, just whatever I could. But again, keep in mind you are really at the mercy of your support group and keep them educated on what you can and can't have, because I had someone very late in my pregnancy bring me a giant plate of spaghetti up to my room, and I thought, are you trying to kill me? I can't have that at all. That's on the list. So make sure everyone else knows what you can and can't have too.
Definitely.
Yeah, I had nausea with the boys and aversions. In fact, the worst pregnancy aversion I had was coffee. It's terrible because I love the smell of coffee, everything about it, and I couldn't even look at it or go anywhere near it. But I'm a kind of a salty, crunchy food person, and I love spicy foods. But the heartburn meant basically most of the things that I would normally turn to were completely off limits. So I had to get pretty creative. I was lucky that they were my first, so I had a lot of freedom. I could go drive through wherever I wanted and go eat wherever I wanted, and I did. But with the boys, I ate a lot of pho. I think that was my number one because it had meat that I could, the Vietnamese noodles, mm-hmm. And because it had the salt that I liked, but I wouldn't make it spicy, and it had beef in it, and a little bit of noodles and
good iron.
Yeah, I think I probably ate that 2 or 3 times a week. But then towards the end, it was eating pretty much anything that would stay, digest quickly, I guess, is more of the concern.
Well, we're going to take a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at one possible way to help decrease the chances of a premature birth of your twins. Well, welcome back. Today we're talking about nutrition for twin pregnancies with Lindsay Stenovac, and our discussion continues as we talk about eating something that may help prevent preterm births. So now we've heard there's a correlation between protein intake and the total gestation time. So can you tell us a little bit more about this?
Sure. So amino acids, which are the little building blocks of proteins, their availability is crucial for fetal development, which also relates to overall gestational time. And so it is important to make sure you're getting enough protein in your diet and also getting complete proteins. And women who are pregnant with twins need upwards of 70 to 80 grams per day, which is considerably higher than your singleton pregnancies and, of course, pre-pregnancy. Most of us consume protein pretty regularly, in kind of the average diet. So it might not be as much of a concern for some women as it is for others. But actually, some of the literature really says that it might be less about the consumption of protein, even though that's important, but it could actually be the delivery of the amino acids to the baby that can be kind of altered during the twin pregnancy that can make it more difficult. So just making sure you always have those amino acids available. If you're a vegetarian, you can certainly get enough protein in your diet. Just make sure that you're not a 1 or 2 food protein source vegetarian. Try your best to get a variety of different protein sources so that you're getting all of the essential amino acids that you would need.
So what are some good examples of, both for vegetarian and non-vegetarian, protein?
Good question. So, of course, a lot of us think of meat first, and then your beans, legumes, nuts, nut butters, tofu, eggs, dairy products, lots of different foods that would usually find their way into our intake rather easily. And it could fit into even your early, weeks as well, depending on how you're feeling.
Mm-hmm. I know for me, I was like, my husband was really, keeping after. We had a little chart, to make sure I was getting, the things from the different food groups. We were following what was known as the Brewer's diet, Dr. Brewer. And so one of the things we check off is the protein. And so my daily go-to thing was do eggs as well as cottage cheese.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
So cottage cheese was, a really great thing. And I, mix it up with like pineapple. So you get that kind of sweet and, creamy taste to it. So
that's a great source of protein.
I think it was harder with the aversions or the things you think you're supposed to avoid, paranoid first-time moms. I love steak, but I usually only eat it rare, and they tell you not to do that. Or I love eggs, but I like them over easy, and that's supposed to be and so I kind of struggled to find acceptable methods of getting protein. I think I ate a whole lot of chicken, and then again the beef noodle soup, and that was pretty much it. Because even the fishes you have to worry about. I felt like there were so many things I was stressing about not eating that it made it harder to get what I normally would eat.
Were you able to be more flexible later on in your pregnancy? Yeah. It's really, for a lot of women, it is a temporary time, and we have stores in our bodies, and we don't want to become overly obsessive or worried and add that stress to our lives during that really rather stressful time. So knowing that doing the best that we can is all that we can do, and that hopefully, that's going to subside, and the flexibility that will then come back.
Definitely. Now, interesting. You mentioned earlier about, as a vegetarian diet, you really do have to make sure you get enough protein from, the tofu and, nuts and I think legumes. Mm-hmm. So are there any other concerns within a vegetarian diet that you need to make sure you're getting those special nutrients?
If you're a vegetarian who actually follows more of a vegan diet, you want to make sure you're getting enough B12. B12 only comes from animal sources. So if you're a vegetarian that consumes dairy, eggs, you're probably okay. But if not, you want to take a supplement to help supplement the B12.
Oh, that's good to know. And I think that's probably just a discussion that everyone should have with their healthcare provider, and just say, this is my lifestyle, and and do you have some suggestions for helping me continue in the twin pregnancy? Now, Shelley had mentioned earlier about we get so obsessed with the things we're not supposed to eat. So there's so many do's and don'ts. And can you help us demystify some of these foods that are often considered taboo? Maybe we start off. I know I've heard deli meats. So why shouldn't we have deli meats?
So deli meats, you could contract something called listeria, foodborne pathogen, from deli meats. It's actually there's a pretty low incidence of actually this occurring, but it can be very problematic for the pregnancy and the baby if you were to contract it. So the risk there is great from that perspective. It is not greatly common. What I usually recommend for women who really love to have deli meats or love to have deli sandwiches, I love deli sandwiches, is I will just, if I go out to get a deli sandwich, I'll have them heat the meat to steaming. And that should take care of that foodborne pathogen. That should be fine. And you can do that on your own at home. Just make sure you're really cooking it to the point where you feel like all the meat is heated, all of it's steaming.
Can you microwave it, or just have to steam? Okay, mm-hmm. Microwave it. Okay.
Yeah, just to where the food is actually steaming. After the microwaver. Mm-hmm.
Oh, very good. So how about in kind of the same line of, I think, deli meats, it goes cheeses. We've heard like blue cheese and other soft cheeses we're not supposed to have.
Any type of cheese that's made from raw milk or raw dairy in general, you'd want to you would want to consider not consuming that due to the risk of there being foodborne pathogens. With these, every woman has to, work with their doctor and do what's most comfortable for them. But turns out, actually, most of our cheeses are made from pasteurized milk. So here I was as a, dietitian telling women, oh yeah, if you're uncomfortable, you may want to consider not consuming these types of cheeses. And then when I was pregnant, I love blue cheese. So I went to the store and I'm like, maybe, I start actually looking at the ingredients. And I'm like, oh, all of these are pasteurized. Like, these
I
are
was
fine.
reading the labels and everything. I'm like, wait a second.
And you can ask at restaurants too. I would,
Yep.
because like cheese was one of the things that I loved and could eat. And so you just, I saw the salad has blue cheese. Do you know if it's pasteurized? And they'll usually check.
Yeah, they usually can
they've
check.
got they're pretty good, especially here in San Diego. I mean, they're really good about food, like pickiness, I guess, or special requests with all the restaurants we have.
So ask and then read labels. So if it's pasteurized, A-okay. Awesome. How about sushi? I mean, here on the West Coast, we're a lot of big sushi fans. So we like raw fish, or let's just say undercooked fish. How is that dangerous for pregnancy?
All of these are related back to food safety. So there's a parasite that can be found in raw fish that can, you don't want to have to be exposed to that during your pregnancy, and it can be dangerous. But talking with your doctor about what their recommendations are, and then some of them will say, if you go to a really reputable sushi restaurant and you talk with the sushi chef and make sure they're really examining the fish, so they can actually see the parasite in the fish, then that might be okay. But again, kind of deciding on what's most comfortable for you. If that's going to really stress you out and you have your sushi and then you worry about it for 3 days and, then maybe it's not worth it.
I find that to be the number one thing my friends request after having a baby. Would you like me to bring you a meal? Yes, sushi, please. I've been missing out.
Yeah, I know personally, I couldn't resist. I had sushi when I was pregnant and enjoyed it. And I think I kind of made the decision that I wasn't going to have any sort of pre-packaged sushi, the kind you can get in the grocery stores and big. I wanted to be able to go to a restaurant where I knew it's absolutely fresh and there's someone who's making it just for our table.
Absolutely. Always thinking about the most fresh product, going to those counters with salads that have been sitting out or even pre-made sandwiches and things like that. You're always, no matter whether you're pregnant or not, taking a little bit of a risk for foodborne illness. And I actually got that my second week in pregnancy. It was the worst experience.
Oh my gosh.
I was so sick. So everything turned out okay, but it was a horrible experience. I would never want to risk experiencing that again.
Oh my, definitely. And now talking about fish, specifically tuna.
Yeah, they're always worried about the mercury content in fish, and in tuna in particular can contain a higher mercury content. But canned light tuna, if you're going to have tuna, is going to be less mercury containing, and then other fishes like tilapia, cod, non-Atlantic salmon, shrimp, and even sardines, if you like sardines, can be okay. But we recommend no more than 6 to 12 ounces per week from a mercury safety perspective. That ends up being, depending on how much you eat, could be 2 times, could be 3 times.
So 6 to 10 ounces of that category, tuna or the other large fish.
Yeah, 6 to 12 ounces, yeah.
On salmon, what is the nutritional difference between the Atlantic versus not Atlantic? I grew up in Seattle, so I'm a huge salmon fan.
Good question. Well, that's actually relating more to the mercury content. But with omega-3s, that's one of the main benefits that we always bring up when we talk about salmon, and I believe those should be comparable.
We've also heard that herbal tea can be not so good for pregnancy, and that actually surprised me. I'd never heard that before, but
where you can get information on this is a natural medicines database. You can actually sign up to receive their notifications and things like that. And if you look, they've graded certain types of herbal teas because herbal, they're natural, and so we always think, automatically safe. But if they have medicinal qualities to them, we want to think about what those medicinal qualities are and whether or not they could affect, the pregnancy. So the ones that they've termed likely safe are red raspberry tea leaf, peppermint tea leaf, lemon. Ginger root is considered possibly safe. It's probably fine. Chamomile doesn't have enough information for them to stay either way. But I know that a lot of pregnant women drink chamomile tea. And then some that they feel are possibly unsafe are things like alfalfa, yellow dock, and nettles, which are actually a lot less common. I don't hear of a lot of women, unless you're maybe a tea connoisseur. I don't hear of that all that much.
Now, earlier you had mentioned water intake for twin pregnancies. And just the importance of how our blood volume is so much more compared to a singleton pregnancy. So, are there any recommendations in terms of like how much water we're supposed to take in every day?
That's a really good question. There are recommendations out there for fluid intake in general, right? But they're actually not as researched as we might think. And every woman is different. So I always say, go by what your body needs. Always bring a water bottle with you. Sip throughout the day. Drink water with every meal and snack. To think, okay, I need X amount of glasses because someone said this on a podcast, and then feel like you're waterlogging yourself to get to that point, then, taking that feedback from your body that's probably too much. And vice versa. If you're finding yourself thirsty all the time, that's a good clue that you're probably not getting enough. Mm-hmm. So using your body to give you that feedback, I think, is the most important thing.
My OB actually would monitor. We had to, you pee in the cup every time you go to the doctor, and they check. He would monitor fluid intake, so they can actually check your hydration from your urine output. So they'll let you know if you're not drinking enough water. He was very not like Lindsay is not concerned about specific numbers or specific amounts, but how is your body looking, So I could be drinking twice as much water as Michelle, but if things aren't looking good for me, then I need to step it up. So it's definitely like a case-by-case basis.
And you can actually look at your urine and know if you're dehydrated. If it's always a very dark color, if it looks more like apple juice, you're dehydrated. And if it looks more like lemonade, you're probably doing okay.
In other words, yes, look before you flush, and indicator of health. And that's a good thing. Thanks so much, Lindsay, for joining us today. And for more information about nutrition for twin pregnancies, or for more information about any of our experts or panelists, visit the episode page on our website. And this conversation continues for members of our Twin Talks Club. And after the show, Lindsay will tell us about some great recipes and ideas for postpartum recovery. And for more information about the Twin Talks Club, visit our website, twintalks.com.
We have a question from one of our listeners. This comes from Rebecca of Rhode Island, and she writes, our twins are due within the next month. My husband and I have been trying to save money as much as possible to prepare for their arrival, but we're still concerned that we're going to run out of money quickly once they arrive, and we're caring for them on a daily basis. And Rebecca, I know exactly what you're talking about because my husband and I are going through the same thing. Rebecca says, do you have any tips on saving money with twins, especially within those first couple of years?
Well, hey, Rebecca, this is Natalie Diaz with Twiniversity Multiplicity Magazine and the author of What to Do When You're Having To. First of all, a huge congratulations on your upcoming bundles of joy. Yes, you are going to be broke. You are going to be very broke. No, I'm only kidding, but you want some really scary statistics? Do you know that raising twins for the first 18 years is going to cost you a little over $400,000? But the good news is we don't have to spend that all at once. And I'm sure that if we start extreme couponing, we could save a few bucks here and there. So some of the big tips that I'm going to give you for saving money is you need to go to the big box stores. So the Sam's Club, the Costco, the BJ's, all of those. And you may want to consider even upgrading to the executive membership. Sometimes there's executive memberships that give you cash back at the end of the year. Definitely do that. Because you know what? Even if it's only a few dollars to get yourself a manicure or a cup of coffee, it's a few dollars, and every penny counts. The next thing that you want to do is you really want to think about how you're spending your money and what you're spending your money on. I think it's a great idea to sit down, even before your 20s get here, and figure out what a realistic budget's going to be. Are you going to be hiring help? If you're hiring help, how much help do you need? How much do you pay per hour? And instead of just saying, oh my gosh, we need somebody, get them here, and get them here fast, and we'll pay whatever we have to pay, I want you to really think about how much could we afford? And so little things like that are going to add up really, really fast. And also, it's not a bad idea to start paying cash for things. It's nice to have those miles add up, but if you know that your weekly budget is in this envelope, you're not going to go over it. So you want to really start paying attention of how you're spending your money and start spending it a little bit more wisely, perhaps, and, skip that quad venti mocha skim no whip. That's my favorite drink, by the way. If you wanted to buy me a drink, that's just the one that I'd want, thanks. But you may want to start paying attention to that, and start putting some money away, and start thinking about saving for those weddings that are coming up in your future. But I really don't think that you're going to go broke. Just be careful, spend your money wisely, and I wish you and your family the very best of luck.
So that wraps up our show for today. We appreciate you listening to Twin Talks. Join in on the discussion by posting your comments on the Twin Talks Facebook page or by calling our voicemail at 619-866-4775. And don't forget to check out our sister shows, Preggy Pals for expecting parents, the Boob Group for moms who breastfeed their babies, and Parent Savers, an online support group for new parents. And next week, we're going to be talking about Inside the NICU time management. This is Twin Talks, Parenting Times 2.
This has been a New Mommy Media production. The information and material contained in this episode are presented for educational purposes only. Statements and opinions expressed in this episode are not necessarily those of New Mommy Media and should not be considered facts. While such information and materials are believed to be accurate, it is not intended to replace or substitute for professional medical advice or care, and should not be used for diagnosing or treating healthcare problem or disease or prescribing any medication. If you have questions or concerns regarding your physical or mental health or the health of your baby, please seek assistance from a qualified healthcare provider.
New Mommy Media is expanding our lineup of shows for new and expecting parents. If you have an idea for a new series, or if you're a business or organization interested in joining our network of shows through a co-branded podcast, visit newmommymedia.com. Hey mamas, don't forget to check out Mighty Moms. It's our online community built for new moms just like you. Not only can you connect with other moms, but you can also join us backstage for special mom-only online events. And you'll also be notified when we're recording so you can join us as a special guest. Visit our website, newmommymedia.com, and click on the Mighty Moms banner. It's free. That's newmommymedia.com. See you there.